The shot cracked through the heat, and the world went silent. Maria Santos stumbled from the old river crossing, clutching her skirt. The smell of gunpowder still hung thick in the air. Clint Barlow's laughter echoed behind her, low and mean. "Keep running, girl. Let's see how far you get." The ground tore at her bare feet as she ran along the riverbank, her dress ripping on thorns, blood streaking her skin. But she didn't stop. She could see the line of willows ahead, promise of shade, maybe a chance to hide. The Rio Bravo glared under the afternoon sun, wide and merciless. She dropped to her knees, near a dip in the riverbank. Panting hard, her breath ragged and sharp, her thigh burned where the skin had split open, shallow but bleeding. She pressed her palm there, whispering through her teeth, "Keep moving, Maria. Don't you stop now." Behind her, a horse snorted, hooves shifting in the sand. She froze. Clint was still back by the crossing, shouting curses, but he didn't follow. The river's glare was too bright, the heat too much for him to chase far. She crawled lower, the dust sticking to her sweat, until her arms gave out. Then everything went quiet, except the hum of flies and the slow roll of water. From the trees came the sound of boots, steady and sure. A man stepped into view, rifle in one hand, hat brim low against the light. Jeb Harmlin, 55, ex-Army scout, carried the kind of calm that comes from living too long with ghosts. He saw her lying there, half hidden by grass and mud, and for a moment he thought she was gone. Then she lifted her head, eyes wide, voice barely a whisper. "Please, help me." He knelt beside her. The smell of leather and river dust hung heavy between them. "Easy now," he said roughly but steadily. He brushed dirt away from the wound on her thigh. When his fingers pressed too hard, she gasped and caught his wrist. "That hand, gentle, please." He stopped, meeting her eyes. There was fear there, but not the kind that begged to be pitied. It was the kind that fought to stay alive. He nodded once. "All right," he said softly. "All right." He tore a strip from his sleeve, cleaned the scrape with whiskey, and wrapped it tight. Her body trembled, but she didn't pull away. When he was done, she let out a shaky breath, half a laugh, half a sob. Jeb glanced toward the river crossing. No one followed. Just dust, heat, and a stillness too heavy for comfort. He looked back at her, the stranger in a torn dress and bare feet, and muttered to himself, "What kind of man fires at a woman and walks away smiling?" The river kept moving, carrying their reflection across its gold surface. And somewhere in that moment, between the pain and the quiet, two lives started to cross. The sun was slipping low when Jeb lifted Maria onto his horse. She held tight to the saddle horn, her dress still torn, her leg wrapped in his old sleeve. Each step of the horse made her wince, but she didn't complain. The river glimmered behind them like molten glass, fading slowly into the trees. They rode in silence for a while. The only sounds were the hooves and her uneven breath. After a long mile, Jeb spoke first. "There's an old line shack near Red Bluff Canyon. Not much, but it'll keep the wind off." Maria nodded, too tired to answer. By the time they reached the shack, night had settled. It leaned tired against the valley, but it felt like a miracle after the riverbank. Outside, his old bay stood tied under the willows, and a smaller mare nosed the grass by the fence. He helped her down, guided her inside, and lit a small lamp. The air smelled of pine and dust. One cot, one stove, one chair, but that was all. He knelt again beside her, checking the bandage. When he touched the edge of the cloth, she flinched. He stopped right away, voice low and kind. "Don't worry, just making sure it's holding." She gave a small nod. "I'm fine," she whispered. "Just hurts when I move." He smiled, faint but real. "Means you're still breathing." He poured a bit of water into a tin cup and handed it to her. She drank slowly, eyes studying him in the dim light. "You didn't have to help," she said. Jeb looked down, turning his hat in his hands. "Maybe not," he said, "but I reckon somebody had to." Outside, a coyote called in the distance, a lonely sound that made the night feel wider. Maria pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Who was he?" she asked softly. "The man who shot at me." Jeb hesitated. "Someone who thinks life's cheap. Will he come after me again?" He met her eyes. "Not tonight." The lamp flickered as the wind brushed the walls. Jeb poured whiskey into a tin, took a slow sip, then set it aside. The crackle of the room took him back to another night by a river. Rain, a sick child, a ferryman refusing to cross. He had never forgotten that man's face, or the sound of his daughter's breathing fading with the storm. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow, we'll figure what's next." Maria nodded, lying back, her breathing steady now, her face soft in the warm light. For the first time in a long time, Jeb felt something he hadn't felt in years, a reason to stay awake, a reason to care. He looked at her, then at the faint stars through the open door and muttered to himself, "Don't stop, keep going." Outside, the night deepened. Somewhere downriver, a horse whinnied and then went quiet. Jeb set his rifle near the door, one hand on the stock, and whispered a prayer only he could hear. Because in a land this wild, sometimes the smallest breath of hope was the loudest sound of all. Morning came slow and red over the valley. Smoke from the small fire drifted up through the broken roof boards. Jeb was already awake, sitting by the door with his rifle laid across his knees. He had not slept much. Too many old thoughts had come crawling back with the night. Maria stirred on the cot. Blinking at the light, her voice was soft. "You kept watch all night." He nodded. "Couldn't help it. Something feels wrong out there." She smiled faintly. "You always this jumpy?" He grinned. "Just a little. Only when I have a reason." He stepped outside to check the tracks near the stream. The dirt was soft, and it didn't take long to find what he feared. A single boot print, deep heel, turned slightly to the left. He crouched down, tracing it with one finger. He knew that walk. He had seen it years ago at the crossing. On a night full of rain and thunder, a man had turned him and his sick daughter away, saying the river was too high to cross. By morning, she was gone. That man's name was Clint Barlow. He stood there for a long moment, jaw tight. Then he walked back to the shack. Maria was sitting up, trying to braid her tangled hair. She looked better now, pale but alive. When she saw his face, her smile faded. "What is it?" she asked. He set the rifle against the wall. "I found tracks. He's close." Her hand stilled. "Clint?" He nodded once. "You know him. He runs the crossing. Thought he owned me too." The words hung in the air like smoke. Jeb poured water into the tin cup and passed it to her. "Drink up," he said. "We'll move soon." She took the cup but didn't drink. "You plan to run?" "No," he said. "I plan to end it." She looked at him, confused. "Why help me, Jeb? You don't even know me." He stared out the window toward the river, eyes far away. "Because once I didn't help someone when I should have, and I've been paying for that every day since." For a long time they said nothing. The wind rattled the door, and a crow called from somewhere high in the pines. Maria set the cup down and whispered, "Then let me come with you." He shook his head. "No. You rest. I'll find proof of what he did, and we'll take it to the marshal in Laredo." She didn't argue, but as he slung the rifle over his shoulder, her voice followed him to the door. "Jeb, be careful." He looked back once and nodded. "Careful ain't what wins, big girl, but I'll try." He stepped into the sunlight, the kind that bleaches everything clean, and for the first time in years, his purpose felt sharp again. Inside the shack, Maria watched him right away until the dust settled. Her leg ached, but the thought of him facing Clint alone ached worse. She found a mare behind the cabin, and with a deep breath, followed the trail, slow but steady.
Maybe this was justice. Or maybe it was just an old man's way of making peace with his ghost. Either way, he was done hiding. So while Jeb walks down that dusty trail toward the crossing and his past, take a breath with me. Pour yourself a cup of tea. Lean back. And tell me, what time is it where you are? And from where are you listening right now? And if you want to see what happens when a tired man finally faces the devil he's been running from, hit that subscribe button and stay with us till the fire burns low. The road to Del Rio was long and empty. Nothing but mesquite and dust stretching for miles. Jeb rode slow, eyes sharp, rifle tied across the saddle. He had tracked men before, but this one was different. This one carried a piece of his past in every step. By noon, he saw the river crossing. The same rickety dock, the same rope line swaying in the wind. Only the man waiting there was older, thicker, meaner looking. Clint Barlow. He leaned against a post, chewing on a matchstick, a pistol loose in his hand. When he saw Jeb ride up, he grinned. For a second, his grin slipped, eyes narrowing. He knew that face. The man who once begged to cross with a dying child on a stormy night years ago. "Well, I'll be damned. Thought you were dead, old man." Clint's grin widened, eyes glinting with a cruel light. "The old man from that night, huh? You think this time you'll save someone? Maybe her, or maybe yourself." Jeb dismounted slowly, dust lifting around his boot. "Not yet." Clint tilted his head. "You got something belongs to me. That girl." Jeb's face stayed calm. "You mean the one you tried to shoot?" "She ran off with my money." "She ran off with her life." The air between them turned still. The river whispered behind them, low and steady. Clint's hand twitched near his gun. Jeb noticed, but didn't flinch. "Don't," he said quietly. "Not today." Clint laughed. "You think you can scare me with that old voice?" He drew. The shot came fast, the echo cracking across the river. Jeb dropped low, the bullet grazing his sleeve. His rifle came up in one smooth motion. He fired once. The bullet hit the post beside Clint's head, splinters flying. Clint froze, his grin gone for a heartbeat. Neither man moved. Then Maria's voice cut through the wind. "You missed me once, Clint." She stepped from behind a wagon, her leg wrapped tight, her hand steady on the revolver. Clint spun toward her, eyes wide. That half second was all Jeb needed. He closed the distance, grabbed Clint's arm and slammed the pistol from his grip. The two men struggled, boots grinding in the dirt. Jeb's strength came not from youth, but from something older and harder. He pinned Clint against the post, breath heavy, eyes blazing. "This ends here." He threw one punch, then another. Clint hit the ground hard, blood running from his mouth. Clint reached for the fallen gun, fingers scraping the dirt. Maria limped forward and kicked it away just as he grabbed the barrel. Jeb pinned him down, breathing hard, his voice sharp as steel. "Stay down, Clint." Maria limped closer, revolver still in hand. Jeb looked down at Clint, chest rising slowly. "You'll answer to the marshal in Laredo." Clint spit in the dirt, voice broken. "You think the law cares?" Jeb turned away. "Maybe not, but I do." He tied Clint's wrists, slung him over the horse, and looked back at Maria. "You did good, girl."
She smiled faintly. "You too, old man." As they rode away, the wind carried the faint sound of the river rolling on, calm again, like it always did after a storm. But behind them, Clint's words echoed in Jeb's head. Words that didn't sound like a threat, but like a promise. 'Cause sometimes, even when the fight is won, the past isn't finished yet. The marshal from Laredo arrived before dawn. He said nothing when Jeb handed Clint over, just nodded, tied the man down, and rode off with him toward the station road. Before he left, the marshal glanced at Clint's, then turned to Jeb. "He won't cause no more trouble, Harlan. You did good." Jeb gave a slow nod, but his eyes stayed on Clint's, making sure the devil he'd chased for years was finally chained for good. Maria stood a few steps back, watching in silence, a faint tremor in her breath that wasn't quite relief. Not yet. When the sound of hooves faded, the valley felt quiet again. Too quiet. They stayed in the shack for several days, letting the silence mend what bullets could not. Maria slept long hours, and Jeb kept the fire going, sometimes reading old letters by lantern light. Each day, the sound of the river grew softer, like the land itself was learning to breathe again. Maria sat near the dying fire, her legs stretched out, the morning light soft on her face. Jeb poured water from a tin kettle, the steam curling up between them. Neither spoke for a while. The silence was not heavy anymore, just full of things they both understood. She finally said, "You could have killed him." Jeb stirred the fire with a stick. "I could have, but then what would be left?" He looked at her. "Sometimes you win by stopping before you lose yourself." Maria nodded, eyes shining a little. "Guess that's harder than pulling a trigger." He smiled. "It always is." Days passed, the river rose with spring melt, the willows turned green again, and Maria began to walk without the limp. Jeb fixed the fence near the shack, and for the first time he hummed while he worked. She teased him about it, and he just shook his head. "I don't hum." But he did. One evening, they sat by the river, watching the water move. Maria picked up a small wooden carving from the table. It was a bird, wings spread wide. Jeb had made it from an old piece of mesquite. She turned it in her hands. "You made this for me." He nodded. "It's a river bird. They don't fly far, but they always find their way back." She smiled, setting it on her lap. "Thank you." He looked at her, voice low. "You're free now, Maria." She shook her head softly. "Maybe we both are." The sky turned gold, the water soft and endless. In that quiet, Jeb thought of his daughter. Maybe she was at peace now. Maybe this was how a man finally forgives himself, not with words, but by saving someone who still had a chance to live. Life gives second chances when you least deserve them. Sometimes one good act can turn a life around. Pain can break you, or it can build you. The river keeps moving, even when you can't. Tell me, what would you have done if you were Jeb? Would you have stopped or kept going? If this story touched something in you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope today. Because out here in the West, every sunrise is a second chance.